Open Your Eyes is brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country, your bank.
Good morning and welcome to Open Your Eyes.
Start your morning right.
I'm April Martinez.
And I'm Asana Ketano.
And good morning. Happy Monday. Brand new week.
We had some early morning showers.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
And so if you did not wake up feeling rejuvenated, then something must be wrong, right?
I mean, I'm the type of person who sleep during the rain. So I'm never rejuvenated. I want to go back in my bed.
Well, I woke up feeling brand new this morning. Right? I didn't have to water my plants because nature did that for me.
I don't know about
the birds were out chirping when the sun finally rose. The birds were out chirping and it's a beautiful morning.
I don't know, maybe it's because I'm already used to that. Like in Belmopan, you hear the birds at 4 in the morning, rain or shine, it doesn't matter. But no, it is a bright day. We had some really nice showers, and I guess we'll talk more about the weather when we hear from the folks from the Met Service. But you know, the weekend was pretty wet. I don't know about here in Belize City, but honestly, it rained most of the time in Belmopan.
Saturday? Yeah. It rained off and on for the duration of the day. Yesterday was much better. I mean, yesterday, some people would say it was fairly hot, but from where I was cool.
You were fine?
I'm not complaining, but yeah. The weekend was a mix of sunshine and rain.
I mean, I normally try to get out as much as possible during the weekend, but I couldn't this weekend. The weather did not allow me to.
Yeah.
Did you do anything fun this weekend?
Well,
not laundry.
My weekends are routine, right? I'll be honest in saying that. There are certain things that I do. I spend time at home, you know, that's important.
Yes.
And I also spend time with my friends. And by spending time with my friends, we socialize in a manner of speaking. And so I've always said to you, and I've, you know, made no bones of this, I enjoy my social life as much as I enjoy my professional life and my home life, right?
Yes.
And so for me, it's always trying to find a constant balance between the three.
Do you, when you talk to your friends, or like when you socialize, is it talking about the things that we talk about here on Open Your Eyes?
Not really.
No?
No. You see, because I have so many groups of friends and individual friends that some conversations are reserved for some circles, right? And so if I'm at work and I'm discussing with my colleagues, the conversation is often of a certain tone, so certain subject matters, right? When I'm with some of my friends, it's a different vibe, right? And what's funny about it is that I do have some circles that I belong to where the order of the day is intellectual discourse. And then I do also have other friends that I socialize with. It's no holds barred, right? So we pick up anything and talk about. And that's the beauty of it, because you want to be as well-rounded as possible, but not pigeonholing yourself into one category per se, right? Especially in our society where people judge the book by the cover more often than not. You're seen fraternizing with certain people or what have you, and then they look at you as, oh, well, you're shallow, that's all you do or what have you, and then it's wider than that, it's deeper than that, you know, but people only call it based on what they see in front of them.
I asked because I figured that these are things that you talk about on a daily basis at work, and I would imagine that you would take some of that conversation at home, and then maybe you'd just not want to have those conversations in your social circle.
So let me put it to you like this, right? I think my dad is living vicariously through me as a reporter. So a lot of those heavy conversations are reserved for when I'm around him, and he'll ask me and pick my brain on certain things, right? And so that is, at least I have something to discuss with him,
Yeah.
because he doesn't engage in the other stuff that I do. So
I mean,
we'll have that to talk about
Yeah.
at any point in time. But yeah, like I said, I mean, there are certain classes, so to speak,
Yeah.
of friends, certain categories where, you know, I try to move across the gamut as you know, fluidly as possible,
Yeah,
so to speak.
I get that. I guess, you know, I was just curious. I wonder about these kinds of conversations, because we come here, we talk about things, we talk about real social issues, and I often wonder how many of us take those conversations and carry it at home and carry it with your friends and see if they actually would engage in that kind of discourse.
But you know, I'll go left for a few here. What is equally interesting is the fact that for the purpose of the morning show, we wake up fairly early and report to work for a certain time. And sometimes when I sit down and think of it, you're forced to put on your thinking cap and your intellectual hat early when your body may not at some times be fully awake. Right? So kudos to us, if I could say that, because it takes a certain skill, you know, to kind of adjust yourself, your body and your mind.
Like you have to be prim, proper, and awake and sharp at 6:30, and not even 6:30, 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning. You have to make sure you have on the correct shoes, otherwise everything goes wrong.
Fair enough for you with the shoes, right? I take my time when I'm getting ready to kind of, you know, ruminate and kind of run things through my mind, figure out, okay, this is what I'm going to say and this is how I'm going to present and what have you, right? Just so as to avoid, you know, coming to the set in the morning and kind of drawing blank or what have you. And it's the same thing for like Sundays, right? I've always said, like, I've always enjoyed Sundays, but you have to put a lid on certain things, right? So that you get to bed early enough, you get your full 8 hours and you report to work prepared.
We could go into a whole conversation about the difference between men in media and women in media and why it's important. I have the right shoes and it doesn't matter if it's on, it doesn't. But that's going to be a different show, a different time. And I don't have enough time for that.
You have the right shoes. I have the right mindset.
I have the right mindset too, right? But I have to be able to juggle both. I have to make sure my shoes match and I have to make sure that my mind is sharp. Otherwise, people are complaining.
Nice.
But that's a whole other conversation. Let's motivate our people this morning.
Certainly.
And we'll motivate you all this lovely morning, Monday morning, with our eye opener. And our eye opener is taken from dailyom.com, and it goes like this. When we are criticized or attacked, it is important to not take it into our heart space. One of the most difficult challenges in life is learning not to take things to heart and hold on to it, especially when we're younger, or if we're very sensitive. We take so much of what comes our way to heart. This can be overwhelming and unproductive if it throws us off balance on a regular basis. When we are feeling criticized or attacked from all directions, it becomes very difficult for us to recover ourselves so that we can continue to speak and act our truth. This is when we would do well to remember the old saying about letting certain things roll off us, like water off a duck's back. Eventually, we will be able to hear the feedback that others have to offer, taking in anything that might actually be constructive, and releasing that which has nothing to do with us. First, though, we tend ourselves compassionately by recognizing when we can't take something in from the outside without hurting ourselves. This is when we make like a duck, shaking it off and letting it roll off our back as we continue our way in the world. You know, this is something that's always so difficult for anybody to achieve, not to take criticism personally. Oftentimes than not, though, I don't know about you, but when I am being critiqued by somebody, I do my best to take it into consideration that, all right, maybe they are having my best interest at heart, and that is why they're giving me constructive criticism. But in this world, especially in this world of media, it's not about constructive criticism. It is about your socks no match, you know, and therefore I will judge or criticize this person based on that. So it's difficult then to not take something personally when it would come off in that avenue. Your thoughts?
I think, generally speaking, while the eye opener speaks to water rolling off a duck's back, which is an excellent analogy, I usually say it's better for us to have or grow a thick skin.
Yeah.
Because as humans, we're opinionated. So as much as we're prepared to criticize, we should also be prepared to be criticized, right? And quite often, we're the first to find what's wrong with someone or a situation. We don't really look at ourselves. We don't really practice introspection. We don't look inside and say, okay, you know what, maybe this is what I need to do to improve myself in the situation or to lead in a certain kind of way that makes the situation easier to deal with or manage. We don't do that.
No.
Or we don't do it enough. It's easier for us to say, well, you know what? April and I were in a quarrel, and so the problem lies with April, not necessarily what I did to contribute to the issue.
Yeah.
It's easier for us to do that, and I could say, well, you know what? These are the reasons why I have an issue with April and why I'm blaming her for her role in the argument. But we don't really say, you know what? If I'm going to criticize, let me find the positive things to say before I come with
the negative.
Precisely, right? It's easier for us to put down. But like I'm saying, in the same vein that we're prepared to do that, when we get placed under the very same microscope, right? And the eyes are peering on us, we should be prepared to take what comes along with that. By virtue of being human and the fact that because we think, because we formulate our own way of seeing things, it renders us opinionated. And because of that, we should be able to take one. If you could give one, you should be able to take one. I'm all for it. I can be one of the harshest critics, not only of myself, but of other people. But at the same time, I've also learned that the journey through life is never going to be an easy one. You can't please everybody. Everybody will have an opinion. Everybody will have something to say, right? The people who have your best interests at heart can also be very, very blunt in the way how they say things, right? And I could recall growing up where I've been called everything from people close and from people who are far, right? Everything gets thrown at you. And I think it's human. I never walk away and say, okay, does what that person say or think define who I am? And I've always built on self-esteem and self-confidence by telling myself, that's not me. What I do is then an expression of who I am, not what someone else thinks or says.
That's true. I definitely agree, but it does take a lot of lessons and a lot of
bumps and bruises
experiences, exactly, to get you to that point. And sometimes people never get to that point. You know, you do have that sensitive person that will always feel like they're being personally attacked when I'm just trying to help you. Or they don't know how to give constructive criticism, and sometimes you do need it. Sometimes you do need somebody to explain to you where you are not necessarily going wrong, but places where you can improve. And that's also something else that we don't know how to do. We don't know how to put our words into proper context. We kind of say things bluntly, but not necessarily making the impact that we would want, right? So
if we go with the idea or the notion that words have meanings, and your use of language, your choice of words do affect how people perceive you or they perceive themselves in that particular scenario, then we should be more mindful if that were the situation in the things that we say. Right?
Definitely.
But when you're used to just let it fly, it's difficult to contain, right?
I mean, we do live in that world. We do live in that world. We just type away or we say what we want, and then we don't necessarily think about the repercussions that will have. So try to see how you can
I'm learning a lesson in
criticism
that too, by the way.
today. You are?
Yes, I'm learning a lesson on that.
Okay, Sonny.
You're never too old to learn.
That's true, definitely. All right, let's hear from the people of our Met service how the weather is going to be like. Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Mr. Derek?
Doing good, thank you. How are you all doing?
I'm doing well on this wet Monday morning. Tell me if you continue.
Well, not all day, and not everywhere either. Today we're expecting sunny skies with cloudy spells, along with a few showers or thunderstorms over most areas this morning, but with showers decreasing this afternoon. So it should get better in the afternoon.
Okay. And our winds?
Okay, let me continue with the forecast itself in terms of the rain. Tonight, skies will be partly cloudy with only isolated showers or thunderstorms, but we can expect a few more over the extreme south. Winds will be from the east to northeast, 5 to 15 knots, producing light chop seas.
Oh, wow. And our temperatures, our highs and lows?
Okay, temperatures today, 87 along the coast, 92 Fahrenheit inland, 80 degrees up in the mountains. Tonight, the lows 80 Fahrenheit over the coast, 73 inland, 68 up in the mountains.
Okay. And the outlook for Tuesday and Tuesday night?
Okay, we're expecting cloudy skies at times, with a few showers again or thunderstorms over most areas.
Okay. With all of these showers and thunderstorms, is there anything in the tropical update?
Well, no, the tropics in our area is relatively quiet at this time, and tropical cyclone formation is not expected during the next couple of days.
Okay. All right. Well, you gave us that update, Mr. Rodan. Is there any advising that you need to share with our viewers this morning?
There is none at the moment.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You're welcome, and same to you.
All right.
All right. So
the
he
outlook
said
for today is better than
maybe
what we
sunny,
thought.
but I don't believe that. Because then it's a rain.
But at the same time, too, weather for the most part is unpredictable.
It
so
is.
It may be sunny here, and it may be cloudy somewhere else. It may be showers elsewhere as well.
Let's just hope that that it continues to be. I like the summer weather. I know that everybody complains about the heat and the hot and the sweat, but I really prefer sunny, hot, warm weather over cold weather
What I
any
enjoy
day.
most about summertime is the fact that you have longer days.
Yes.
And so waking up early in the morning gives you a lot more time to be out and about
Right.
than, for instance, in December, January, and February, where you have shorter days and everything feels dark very early.
Dark and gloomy, and then the sun doesn't rise until about 6, and then
After
it's
6,
and then
yeah.
it sets at around 6 in the
Yeah.
evening as well, and you just feel like it's your time is limited.
Yeah.
But all right, but we have to get moving with our show for this morning with our eye on the news.
There are a few things I want to discuss this morning. We'll begin by first discussing a press release, a statement that was issued by the Ministry of Health and Wellness yesterday evening. Now, it's rather strange, in a manner of speaking, that the government of Belize would issue a statement over the course of a weekend. So it has to be of concern as to why this course of action would be taken. Nonetheless, the Ministry of Health and Wellness yesterday evening issued a statement with respect of a proposed loan facility being made available to a private company by the Social Security Board. Before I get into the details of what we've been able to gather thus far, I want to give somewhat of a backdrop on stories that we've been covering with respect of SSB from last week. You would recall, April, that SSB has also made a loan facility, this one for $20 million, available to the Development Finance Corporation. And that raised a few questions last week. We were able to speak with the Chief Executive Officer of SSB. We were also able to speak with the chairman of the Development Finance Corporation, and we learned that it would not have been the first time that,
Yeah.
that SSB has used our monies to invest in other ventures. We know that there was, under the previous administration, an attempt to bail out the citrus industry, where SSB once again drew down on funds to be able to lend to the stakeholders in the citrus industry. So that was just one instance, right? And so last week, when we were able to discuss this matter of SSB using our funds, our monies, to be able to put into other areas, we learned that, like I said, nothing new, right? It's just a matter of them and the creditor, if I could use that description, being able to honor their commitment, their financial obligations to pay on schedule. So that was last week. So when this statement came out yesterday of this proposed $7 million to lend to Pharmacy Express, it raised a lot of questions, undoubtedly. Granted, it was not a business day, so to get to the bottom of certain areas of this whole scenario, we kind of had to dig deep. We had to try to make things happen at the last minute. And so I set out to do just that, to try to figure out, okay, who are the principals of this particular company, and what due diligence, if any, was done on the part of the investment committee to be able to properly vet
How can we
this
be sure?
applicant, right? And to make sure that everything is being done above board. What we were able to uncover, and this is what has been shared with me from officials well placed within the Ministry of Health and Wellness. What I can share this morning is the fact that a year or so ago, there was this company called Medigen that was conducting business with the Ministry of Health and Wellness. What I've also been made to understand is that reportedly as much as $1.6 million in pharmaceuticals were rejected by the government of Belize that were being procured by this particular company. And the reasons, I'm told, ranged from substandard quality of drugs that were being brought in. Some were defective, mislabeled, etc. And so the government, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, had flagged this particular company. As a matter of fact, from what I was being told yesterday, is that the company, in a sense, has been blacklisted, right, from doing business with the government. And so when this whole notice, remember, it follows a notice that was put out by SSB that the $7 million would have been made available to this particular company, Pharmacy Express. So they, the ministry, went about their own due diligence to find out, okay, well, who's this company? Because we're not doing business, we're not aware of them doing business with us, etc., etc. And in the process of them going about that particular due diligence, they were able to determine who the principal of the company was. Lo and behold, apparently it's the same person who is behind Medigen, right? And so the concern was flagged. I'm being told that the chair of the investment committee for SSB was informed that, look, we, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, has flagged this particular individual for this purpose. And so we're bringing it to your attention so that you're able to really vet and see, you know, where this goes in terms of you now making available this $7 million to this particular business. I think from what I was told yesterday, it's all against the backdrop of the SSB and the public concern that we don't go back down that road several years ago, over a decade ago perhaps, where monies were dispersed in short order to certain borrowers without there having been that proper process that was followed. You would recall it led to a commission of inquiry on both sides, the DFC at the time and of course SSB, right? And so we're trying to avoid a similar scenario or a repetition of that kind of mistake. Again, this was what I was made to understand informally, but from a well-placed source within the Ministry of Health and Wellness. What I can also confirm is that we do intend to speak with the Chief Executive Officer for the ministry this morning, and we are anticipating that more details of this particular situation will be made public, right? And so it's a very, very delicate one,
yes,
sensitive, but it involves the people's money once again, right? And while we cannot necessarily stop SSB from investing our monies into other areas, we need to be fully aware of the people and the businesses and the organizations and the initiatives that these monies are being placed in.
I agree. I think one of the biggest concern is how do we know that this company will be able to pay back the monies within the certain amount of time? That's one. And then two, and this is just my own opinion, my own concern. Why is it that every time these things happen and let's say they can't pay back, right? Then the company goes bankrupt. Then that's us. We suffer once again. We're put in a certain amount of debt as a country, as a society, and we still have to be the ones to keep paying, right? We still have to be the ones to keep bailing out. So how are we supposed to feel secured, especially with the Social Security Board, where we pay our due diligence, and then they make it so difficult when it's time for you to get your monies back, to get that money. These are the concerns that I know that I have heard several times again from the general population, from people in my own families, that it's so difficult to get back the monies that we pay, and yet they're asking us to invest our monies into a company like this that we don't even know what it's for.
Yeah, I think, well, because the statement from the notice from SSB and the subsequent statement from GOB, like I said, it raised concerns immediately. So I think part of the online chatter, if I could describe it as such, the Albert era representative, the chair of the Joint Public Accounts Committee as well, Tracy Panton, you know, raised legitimate questions with respect of this whole process. You know, who are the principals? You know, would this company be able to pay back this amount of money over the 10-year period, right, as prescribed in the agreement? And so they're relevant questions.
Yes.
I think it piggybacks on the concern that is being raised by the ministry itself with respect to this particular individual and the persons behind the company.
My biggest question is, what is the necessity of it? Why are we doing it? Who owns that company, and why is it important that we're investing particularly in that one? And
where there have been red flags for business conducted in another area.
So that is my primary concern. People will say thank you so much for the transparency, etc., etc. And yes, thank you so much for the transparency, but it's not sufficient, because you aren't providing a memo to me stating that we plan to do this. You are providing a memo to me stating that you've already done it. And so now that is not, I mean, you're not always going to have a referendum to decide what we're going to do with monies by the public, but I don't understand how is it that we're still going in this cyclical concept time and time again, where we invest in spaces where we probably shouldn't, and then we drive ourselves deeper in debt, and the people that have to pay for it is the general public. That's my main concern.
Like I said, we'll hear more from the CEO this morning. At least we intend to reach out for a formal comment and position on this matter. On both ends, right? On both ends, the SSB as well as the ministry. So that's the first thing. The second, we made it known to the public on Friday, we as in the media, that we've chosen Pastor Lewis Wade to be our representative on the People's Constitutional Commission. And his alternate is my colleague, Daniel Ortiz from Channel 7. I think in the wake of that announcement, some concerns are also being raised with respect to other positions that have been taken by Pastor Wade. Now, you would appreciate that my good brother, Pastor Wade, is outspoken on a number of issues, right? There's the marijuana conversation that's ongoing. There was the repeal of the Section 53 a few years ago, where he also took front and center in that matter, right? And so there are several positions that people are, okay, is he the fittest person to be able to sit on this commission to represent the concerns of the media? Well, we voted near unanimously that he is the person that we want to sit on that commission to represent us, right? We'll see where that goes, but at this point, we do have full confidence that he is the person to be able to assist us and share our views with respect to the constitutional reform process. That's on one end. Now, beyond that, you have had several other groups that have come forward to share their concerns and to object to certain aspects of exclusion, so to speak, where, for instance, the National Creole Council has come forward to say, well, we don't have a seat at that table. And if we're looking at everyone else of the same ilk, right? If you're looking at the National Garifuna Council, if you're looking at the Mayas, who also have representation, then they're saying, well, we need to be there too, right? And so there are other groups as well that are calling for the same opportunity, if I could use that word, to be able to sit and represent the views of their public, to be able to, you know, participate in this process. Now, I understand that the People's Constitutional Commission, from a meeting that we attended last week, that they will be formally introduced in early August, right? And so we're going through this process where we're choosing members to sit on that commission. What I hope to get out of it is the fact that whatever these people discuss and whatever they agree to in terms of shaping the Constitution, or reshaping, if that were the situation, that it is done in the best interest of all of us as Belizeans, right? Man, woman, black, white, you name it. That there would be fair and equal representation as best as possible to be able to share the views of all of us who are affected by the way laws are formed, the way the laws of the land are put in place, and the impact and the effect that it has on the people.
I 100% agree, and I think that one of the beauty about that Belize has is that we are able to have these kinds of representations from all communities. What I hope, and this is just something that I know that as human beings we have a very hard time doing, is that everybody remains as objective as possible when making certain decisions, and not have their personal biases affect their decision making when it comes to properly formulated laws. And you, as a woman, man, you want to be able to strongly form and make sure that your group gets some level of recognition, and they're able to get help, right? But that also means that whenever you're making those decisions, what is best for you might not be best for the other. And so you have to keep in mind that it's not just, you are there as a representative of your group, yes, but you're also there to make sure that whatever decisions are made are in the right benefits for every Belizean person in this country. So I'm hoping that that is something that can come to light.
The process, as far as I understand, will span a period of about 18 months, right? And so there is a lot that will go into it in terms of reviewing what is there, in terms of, new input for things that can be changed, etc. So I presume that not only will it be tedious, it will be very detail oriented if that's what they're looking at to be able to fine tune and to be able to craft, all of these things with respect to the Constitution.
And with respect to everybody that lives in Belize, remember that we are a multi-ethnic population with people that come from different walks of life that choose Belize as their home. And we want to be able to make sure that every single person feels that they're included within their rights. That's what we want, right?
That's what it should boil down to.
That's what it should boil down to. And I know that when you get a whole bunch of people together, it's always difficult to maneuver. And so you have to be, I think it's Cesar Ross that's going to be heading the...
He's part of the good governance unit.
The good governance unit, right?
Yeah.
Whosoever is heading this, kudos, and I wish you the best of luck.
All right, so that does it for us on the Eye on the News. One final thing before we go. We're down to the last few days ahead of the Belize International Music and Food Festival. So preparations are being made, final preparations if I should say so, for this upcoming weekend in San Pedro. Again, these are public monies that are being used to fund this particular initiative. So we'll hope for a detailed breakdown at some point as to not only how it went in terms of its attendance and everything, but a breakdown of how the monies were spent and what profits, if any, were realized from this initiative. So it's just something that we're keeping an eye on as well. All right, so that does it for us this morning on the Eye on the News. Remember, these stories and many more. This weekend has been rather eventful in terms of other stuff that we'll be covering, but details of these stories and many more you'll be able to catch at 6 p.m. on live on 5, and on social media on Facebook and YouTube.
All right, and we get into our show for this morning. We have two wonderful packed segments for us. One very, very heavy conversations, I think, but one that you definitely need to listen to. Our first segment will be all about sargassum research. We've been talking about sargassum, we've been monitoring sargassum, we've been talking about its effects and the possible outcomes of what we can use. So we will have via Zoom with us Dr. Terrell Thompson, and he will be discussing a sargassum PhD research that could be conducted in Belize. So stick around for that.
The second part of our conversation this morning is e-governance and the digitalization unit. We've been talking about e-governance for quite some time. Now is an opportunity for us to get more details in the direction that the government of Belize is going with this particular initiative. That's our second conversation.
All right, and with that, we're going to take our first break, and when we get back, sargassum. So stay tuned.
I'm always on the go, and the country is my home. So when I want to get away from it all, I immerse myself with my favorite movies, all from the new Smart Stream app. And use your mobile data, Smart Stream data packages, or smart broadband to stream and enjoy. Be like me and stream on the go with Smart Stream.
We were born connected to the water, the deep blue, the soil, the salt air, sheer abundance, ritual, water, expectation of the catch, the wind and waves. What lay beneath filled our bellies, sustained our communities. But song fell to a whisper. Her rituals were lost. Communities changed. But now, that song beckons us back to the sea, to generations that came before and for the generations still to come. Thriving abundant sea is possible. Rebuilding fish populations can be our legacy.
After a rough week of school, Jake and his friends decide to treat themselves to frozen coffee. And since they don't have cash on them, they decide to use eCash. With eCash's geolocation feature, Jake can easily find the nearest coffee spot. With eCash's built-in option to split bills, Jake can pay the bill and his friends can reimburse their portion of the bill. Jake scans the merchant's code and confirms payment. Jake then views his transaction history and taps on the transaction recently made, then taps the split the bill button where he selects the evenly option to evenly split the bill. The application splits the bill automatically. His friends receive and accept the request. Geolocation and splitting the bill via eCash makes Jake enjoy his digital lifestyle.
I am proud to be a Belizean. Tell them that we bonded. You're bonded, you're bonded. Tell them that we bonded. You're bonded, you're bonded. Tell them that we bonded.
I've always enjoyed the different flavors of my country. Every nook and cranny has its own unique taste.
Our history, rich with culture. We've come so far since our independence. Our flag, rivers, mountains, our people, diverse and strong.
Looking back, I am proud and honored. We must continue to preserve and conserve our culture and country for the next generation.
This is our Belize. Respect it, cherish it, love it.
My name is Said Gutierrez. I'm the Protected Areas Program Director at Yashe Conservation Trust. Welcome everyone. Today we are here gathered to celebrate an important day for us. It's a biodiversity focused event. We're here at the Golden Stream Corridor Preserve and we will be engaging youth primarily from the buffer communities around the protected areas. And so we're happy to have people around learning about protected areas and also specifically about the wildlife that is found within the Bladen Nature Reserve and the Golden Stream Corridor Preserve.
Hi, my name is Beth Dorgay. I'm the Science Director at Yashe. A Bioblitz is an event where communities and scientists come together to record as many species as possible in a short amount of time. So this year at Yashe's Bioblitz, we are going out into the field, into the protected areas, and we are documenting all of these species that we can see and hear. That includes birds, mammals, trees, freshwater macroinvertebrates, native bees. There are more than 1 million species on this planet, and these species are facing threats from climate change, habitat loss, invasive species, and other things. So events like this, where you go out and record species, are really critical to actually helping to improve the knowledge that we have of the species in the first place. And second of all, we hope to really engage community members to be able to build their knowledge of the species around them and inspire them to be able to do conservation work like this in the future.
I'm Arutha Shori, Education and Outreach Officer. On behalf of Yashe, we'd like to thank each and every student, teachers, and adults that took part in this activity for this Bioblitz 2022 to become a memorable experience. Well, we hope that they actually, learned something. They actually took with them something that the science team put out to them for today. So they want to tell them thank you, and we hope to see them again next year for the Bioblitz 2023.
Welcome back. Our first conversation this morning, as we mentioned prior to our commercial break, is to discuss Sargassum research. Joining us via Zoom all the way from Barbados is Dr. Terrell Thompson. He is the Life Sciences Coordinator at Export Barbados. Good morning, Dr. Thompson.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, everyone.
Let's begin by talking about your involvement, first of all, with Sargassum research and this proposal to put together a dissertation, I believe, on this particular topic.
Okay. Good morning again. It all started back in 2014, post my master's degree. I did research in the disposal of plastics. And upon my return to Barbados, I noticed that we had a problem with seaweed piling up on our beaches, and I wanted to find a solution to it, or at least one solution to this problem. So I just went about doing some research, contacted several universities, and New Zealand was keen on looking into opportunities for the waste treatment and disposal of this biomass. So that's where it all started, just seeking to address an issue of local and albeit regional importance.
So describe for us the situation in Barbados where Sargassum is concerned, because in Belize we're still constantly battling this Sargassum plague, if I could use that. What has it been like for you guys over on the island and being able to mitigate the number, the actual amount of Sargassum being washed ashore?
Again, we are experiencing the same problem that you would have just described. Annually, we get about 10,000 tons a day of Sargassum washing up on our beaches. It has reached a point where it is actually causing the shoreline to rise, because you have an influx of Sargassum, then the sand covers that, and then you have another influx. And so the shoreline is beginning to rise. We've had several reports of mass fish kills. Even the sea turtles have been affected, and their nesting has been affected. Currently, what is being done is that it's being removed from beaches and then transported to the landfill and disposed. And as we know, this is eco-unfriendly. That is the solution as it stands. It is not a quick fix, as many people believe it is, to be quite honest, because with everything in every country comes policy and legislation, and that is not in place at the moment, although that is being worked upon as we speak.
I would gather that it has a direct impact on your tourism product. Much the same as here in Belize, where you have visitors who come to enjoy our beaches, who come to enjoy, being on the islands and what have you. And if you have blankets of Sargassum
it's not
everywhere, it's a turnoff.
Indeed, there have been several reports in the media, and this would be international media, where persons have cancelled flights coming to Barbados, and indeed across the region, Jamaica and so on, because of the odor emitted when Sargassum piles up on the beach and it starts to decompose. Additionally, it is unpleasant to the eye. Let's just be honest. You see this brown thing piled up on the beaches, it's very unpleasant. And then when persons try to even go into the water, to enjoy our wonderful beaches, they're bathing in Sargassum, who likes to be, Many persons don't even like to go into the water and have sea moss touch them for less, So it's a really big problem. And I do admire several of the Caribbean islands for taking initiatives to seek to address this issue.
Okay, when I want to get into your research for a bit, talking about Sargassum and how you plan to create some solutions for the problem. There are certain things that are a little bit tricky though when it comes to tracking Sargassum, especially when it comes to like seasonal variation, the chemical makeup of Sargassum and so forth. So how much of your research is diving into the sustainability for economic growth with this kind of resource?
As you rightly said, it is a challenge. My research focused mainly on its bioconversion when it is on island or when it has washed ashore. It didn't focus on monitoring, it didn't focus on quantifying. I did do some characterization, but again, as you said, it varies from season to season. So that as well has been a challenge. But I more so focus on opportunity for value-added resource recovery.
Okay. How are you tracking that? Because the chemical makeup of sargassum is also in itself a little bit unstable. So how are you using sargassum in itself to create that biomass?
Again, so my analysis focused on sargassum from the year 2019. And moving forward for sustainability, every year you would have to analyze, as you said, the makeup changes, and that will affect the process going forward, or the application of my study going forward. So a continuous analysis would have to be done.
Can you talk about that? I was reading it and I had a lot of questions when it comes to the I'm not a scientist, right? So I just wanted to know a little bit more about how you track the chemical makeup of sargassum. But can it be pre-treated then if you have that instability of the chemical makeup?
Pre-treatment isn't going to improve the chemical makeup. Okay, so essentially what pre-treatment would do is it would break it down and make it more accessible for certain applications. Like my study in particular, when I did the pre-treatment, it was to increase the availability of sugars. As you would know, as I think you would know, going to the beach, if you were to take some sargassum in your hand and try to pull it apart, it is very fibrous.
Yes.
And as a result, it doesn't readily decompose. So pre-treatment would actually accelerate the decomposition process. That is what pre-treatment would do.
Okay.
But in terms of the chemical composition, again, a lot of it stems from its origination, and this would be off the coast of Brazil. And that, in that growth area, you have runoff coming from the Amazon region. And that is due to fertilizer use and so on. And as you know, the composition of fertilizers can change. Sometimes they may have more nitrogen or more phosphorus and so on. So it's going to be very difficult to characterize it. If we just look at, looking at it like that, it's going to be very difficult.
Beyond its usage for landfill, what other uses can sargassum be repurposed for?
Okay, so my study in particular, I looked at it for biogas, using it for biogas generation. And biogas would be for electricity production, and a secondary component would be fertilizer. Right? So that is one application of it. From research, sargassum also contains a lot of bioactive compounds. So extraction of these bioactive compounds, you can actually use them in pharmaceuticals, you can use them in nutraceuticals. Then I've seen some places in Mexico where they actually are using sargassum to construct houses. So that's a new application as well. But those are the ones that definitely spring to mind. I see a lot of persons would be taking it and be using it for human consumption. I would not recommend at all human consumption because it is very high in heavy metals, things like mercury and arsenic, which are very toxic to the human body.
Yeah. In your research, you talked about you have to be careful of its hydrogen sulfide because, you know, the byproduct cause it will be corrosive to the machinery that you use when you're doing this kind of stuff. So how are you planning to solution that?
Okay, so there are several ways to scrub or remove hydrogen sulfide from biogas. There are biological scrubbers, things like biochar and so on, that can actually be utilized to reduce the composition of hydrogen sulfide to mitigate the corrosion of equipment.
Okay. And my final question when it came to the use, because you were talking about biogas, but then you did mention agricultural applications. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
Okay, so sargassum, post-digestion or anaerobic digestion, as my study would have shown, there's potential for the use of the digestate or the residue from the process as an agricultural stimulant, right, as a fertilizer, biofertilizer. The challenge, again, is because it is so high in heavy metals. When I did my analysis, I realized that these heavy metals were also present, or the high concentration, it was also present in the digestate. So what we would need to do is you would actually need to treat it prior to using it. A recent study was published, and it actually shows that foods that are grown in Sargassum, when they actually test the vegetables, that are grown in Sargassum, when they test the vegetables, they also revealed a very high concentration of heavy metals. So it was actually transferred from the soil into the actual vegetable itself. So again, some sort of remediation would be necessary prior to using it as a fertilizer component. But there is potential for it to be utilized as a fertilizer component.
Okay, so you're doing your PhD in New Zealand. You've completed it, okay, yes. From New Zealand, forgive me. What has their research, what has their studies in that part of the world shown in respect of learning more about Sargassum and being able to deal with it?
Again, in terms of that part of the world, New Zealand isn't affected by Sargassum, so this was actually the first study done at the University of Auckland, and indeed, to my knowledge, in New Zealand on Sargassum. But they're keen to assist. I do know that they're actually funding several ventures along with CCRI, that's the Caribbean Climate Change Renewable Energy Efficiency Institute here in the region, and they're actually looking to for solutions to Sargassum, the Sargassum influx. So they're actually doing their part in terms of funding research moving forward.
When you talked about the removal of sargassum, you talked about how costly it is, right? We talk about how costly it is here also in Belize. What are your suggestions then to reduce this kind of costly method? Because how else are we supposed to collect the sargassum and then create all of these different resources with it?
That's a very tricky question. It's a very tricky question. Again, the challenge remains because sargassum washes ashore onto the beaches. I know in several countries the removal of sand from the beaches is an illegal practice. When we use our tractors and so on, as is the case in Barbados, we collect a lot of sand and that goes with the tractor. So again, you have to have the manpower, the physical labor is necessary. I know in some places like in Guadeloupe and Martinique, they would have employed they utilized the military to help with the cleanup of sargassum and so on. In terms of what can be done to reduce costs, that's a very tricky one. Because again, most of the Caribbean islands, we are tourist destinations. They come to us for our beaches, for our sun and our sand. So we have to have it prepared for them. So I don't think there's a quick fix to reducing costs in that regard.
What I've been trying to figure out through your research is the process of what happens between the sargassum floating in the water when it reaches the beach, and then how long does it take before it starts to decay? Because what my understanding is that when it decays, it doesn't necessarily have the same amount of use anymore, right? So can you kind of give us a little bit more insight on that?
That is quite controversial because studies vary in that regard. I know that in my case, I collected fresh sargassum and I dried it because I had to then transport it to New Zealand. But subsequent to my research, I've seen the person stating that you can actually use the sargassum fresh from the ocean, and I've also seen persons saying that it can be beach sargassum as well. So again, studies,
Why does it stink? It's really one of the biggest concerns that we do have. Apart from it doesn't look nice, it also has that pungent smell, right? So
yes. So again, when it washes ashore, it's a natural process of decomposition. As you would imagine, sargassum is composed of about 85 to 90% water. So when it washes ashore, you actually have the water being trapped in the sargassum. And as you know, when water is collected in one area for too long, you actually start to get a lot of odor being emitted from it. Additionally, sargassum is composed or contains a lot of sulfur. And the decomposition of it releases hydrogen sulfide. It also releases ammonia as well.
Yeah.
And those two are definitely responsible for the stinky odor, as you would put it, from the sargassum.
Yeah, I've been looking at the different pros and cons, right? And of course, the cons of the sargassum definitely affects our tourism and our economy and so forth. And what we can do with it does vary, and it does, create certain solutions. Yeah. But the one thing that I guess you or anybody hasn't really been able to figure out is how is it going to be sustainable for our economy. So just based on your research from Barbados, how would you suggest that we begin sample collection and preparation in Belize for solutions?
Excuse me. So one thing you can actually do is you can harvest it or collect it from the shoreline, and you can actually sun dry it and store it in silos and utilize the dried sargassum.
How do you do that? How do you do that? Because just for our non-scientist viewers out there, how would you begin?
So what you can actually do is, again, you spoke about using physical labor, the manpower. So you can actually use rakes and so on this is to minimize the removal of sand from the beaches. I'm not sure of the policies in Belize with regards to the use of tractors and so on the beaches, but you can actually collect it, you can harvest it and transport it to a facility and have it dried, sun-dried. We want to capitalize on our solar, so we sun-dry it, and then you can actually store it in silos, similar to how large farms would store their feed. And you can actually utilize the dried sargassum like that. I know here in Barbados in particular, and I'm a part of this project, so I'll speak to it, the University of the West Indies, we're actually looking into a project where we are using sargassum and another organic waste product to produce biomethane. And this biomethane is for use as an alternative transport fuel. As you know, with the current issues in Europe with regards to Russia and Ukraine and so on, this is going to be very important. So I know several institutions or several academic institutions, they're actually doing their part to identify solutions. I know some research is being done in Jamaica. There's actually one company here in Barbados that is utilizing sargassum seaweed to produce bioplastics. So there's several applications, and I think a lot of it has to be led by the academic institutions.
It's interesting because there's a potential for this to be big business once the research shows that it can be used for all of these other purposes that you've stated. It would be interesting to see how biofuel is made from it, though, in terms of we're looking at the high cost of fuel based on inflation and what have you presently, and this would be a welcome alternative if we'd be able to, get some kind of process going where we can start putting it out as quickly as possible.
Yes. And again, I must stress that this is not going to be a quick fix. A lot of persons think this is going to happen tomorrow. It is not. It's going to take some time. It's going to take a couple of years. One of the things that I'm hearing constantly on the streets is we've never had sargassum, and that is not true. It has been here 2001, 2002, but in very small quantities. Again, the catalyst for the increase has been climate change, in addition to increased agricultural runoff coming from the Amazon. So we need to get the rhetoric around it correct and understand that it's going to be with us for some time, and we need to actively work on identifying solutions for the problem.
Right, so that was going to be my next question, because sargassum is produced naturally, right? So by us collecting it in mass quantities, are we disrupting the marine ecosystem in that kind of way?
No, and again, well, yes and no. It depends on where it is collected. Now, in the open water, sargassum is a hub or a habitat for many fish and marine life. They feed off of it and so on. So if we collect it too far offshore, we would definitely be affecting the marine ecosystem. Onshore, not as much. And again, it would be necessary. The region is also known as a nesting hub, a sea turtle nesting hub. And what we found is that several of the turtles try to come ashore, and they get trapped in the sargassum and they drown. So again, removing it onshore would be best, or in the waters very close to the shoreline would be best.
So we're coming down to the wire, and I had a couple more questions, but I guess the most crucial one is the results and the outcome of your research. How are you planning to implement those in Barbados, and how can we use that for Belize?
Okay, so in terms of in Barbados, currently we are looking into, a biogas plant. Initially, we're going to pilot it with organic waste, but we're not going to utilize Sargassum at this time. Sargassum will be slowly incorporated. Based upon my research, what I found is that when you have more than 20% of Sargassum in your feedstock going into the biogas plant, you actually have a reduced yield because, again, the Sargassum contains several toxins that will impede the process. So to optimize potential, you need to have at least 20% or less of Sargassum in your feedstock. So we're going to pilot it firstly without the use of Sargassum, and then we'll look to slowly incorporate Sargassum. One of the initiatives, again, that Export Barbados has been pushing, or seeking to drive rather, is that we have been engaging the public in terms of identifying ideas for the use of this biomass, because we do understand that we don't have all, or we don't know it all, we don't know what others are actually doing, so we're seeking to engage the public. So I think one of the things that Belize can incorporate is that you can actually seek to engage the populace, see what they think, how, and look for different ways to, different avenues to allow them to identify or to do stuff with it, like several, challenges and so on. We have several challenges that we use there. We did it with the ash cleanup, and we got some amazing results. Persons created several wonderful projects and products when we had the large ash fall from Soufriere in St. Vincent, and we're doing the same thing with the Sargassum seaweed. It's all about engagement and engaging the public.
Do you think it's a good idea to use it as landfill?
No.
Okay.
No. Again, that is chicken out. A major chicken out. That's sad to say.
I mean, we're learning, right?
I think as well, the challenges is that when it goes into the landfill, again, it will decompose, and it takes a good while before it decomposes, right? The challenge there in the landfill is that you're releasing greenhouse gases into the atmosphere, and we're all seeking to mitigate climate change.
Right.
Yeah.
One avenue can be capturing landfill gas. Landfill gas, again, is similar to biogas. So that can be captured and used as a biogas, and again, for electricity generation. It can be upgraded for, use in natural gas grid and so on. So there's several opportunities there for the utilization of this biomass. It's just that we need to identify the one that works best, and as you were stating, one that is sustainable.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else you want to share with us as we wind down this particular segment?
I just want to encourage people to, not to consume Sargassum. Please don't.
I feel like this is a conversation you have often, people trying to consume Sargassum.
Definitely. And I know a lot of persons would have been using it as a fertilizer. And while you do get an increase in the yield, you also have to realize that the heavy metals like mercury and so on, they accumulate in the body. And after a while, they will be detrimental to your health. So yes, I would try to sway persons away from using it or consuming it for food and using it as a fertilizer. But there are opportunities out there for its utilization, and we will find it. It just takes a little time.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Thompson. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I guess we look forward to seeing how we can use different avenues to implement this kind of research, and hopefully other people will jump on the opportunity to get some funding for their own. So thank you so much for that insightful conversation this morning.
You're welcome. Do have a good day.
You as well. All right, so we're going to get moving into our show for this morning. But before we get into our next break, introducing the look of the week from Phoenix Boutique.
Welcome to the Phoenix Boutique. Here's our look of the week. We have a monochromatic look, mono meaning one and chromo meaning color. We have the pink Monstera clay earrings from Meraki, Belize with a full Zara outfit, a ruffled chiffon blouse, a wide leg trousers, and the pink studded heels. The look is completed with a Michael Kors wristlet.
Technology is ubiquitous, and it's transforming how, when, and where we work. Full-Tech Systems is placing award-winning devices in the hands of information workers, allowing them to work without compromise in a world without wires, to innovate, create, and to maximize productivity anytime, anywhere, satisfying the needs of the desk-centric remote and field worker and every other worker in between. We are providing the industry's best devices to businesses going through the process of digital transformation. Partner with us today to provide the solutions that will allow your employees to work effectively and efficiently to enhance your customers' experience. Full-Tech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
Make your summer better. Over $35,000 in cash and prizes with Smart Summer Sweepstakes. Here's how you can enter for a chance to win. Purchase any device, sign up for a smart postpaid, broadband, or VoIP plan, use $50 or more regular prepaid credit, do a SIM swap, or text to the short code. You win 8946. And in the body of the message, enter the number of entries you would like to purchase. Each entry costs only 50 cents.
Don't waste any time. You can be the winner of weekly prizes starting July 1st. All methods give you more chances to win. Airline tickets, overnight stays at numerous resorts, cash prizes, gift certificates, and much, much more. One lucky person will win the grand prize of a $10,000 shopping spree courtesy Quartz and Smart.
Promotion ends September 16, 2022. So make your summer better by getting in the race to win with Smart Summer Sweepstakes. Smart, bringing people together.
I'm on my way to Benny's, where I can get what I need and save some money. After 75 years in the business, nobody do it like Benny's. Hello, how may I help you? Anything you need, we got you. Whether it tools or tiles, lights and fans, we are serving with a smile. Genuine plumbing and electric supply, quality construction supply, heating and air condition, 100% Belizean. Benny's, celebrating 75 years. Quality and savings, quality and savings. Benny's, celebrating 75 years. Quality and savings, quality and savings. Benny's, celebrating 75 years. Quality and savings. Quality and savings.
The Social Security Board, in collaboration with the Labor Department, takes this opportunity to remind insured persons of the requirements for compensation when on sick leave. Any employee who has worked with an employer for at least 2 months is entitled to 16 working days of sick leave with full pay every year. This is how it works. Upon approval of a sickness or injury benefit claim by SSD, 80% of the employee's weekly insurable earnings is paid as a Social Security benefit, and the difference in the employee's salary is paid by the employer. This is to ensure that the employee does not suffer any loss of wages when ill. After 16 days, compensation for sick leave is paid as a Social Security benefit only. Some conditions apply. This message is brought to you by the Social Security Board and the Labor Department. Social Security Board, safeguarding you, your family, your future.
And we are back with our second conversation for this morning. Joining us in studio to talk all about e-governance and the digitalization unit, we have Alexia Peralta, who is the Director of E-Governance and the Digitalization Unit, and Janelle Mencias, who is the Senior Informational Officer at the Government Press Office. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good. Glad to be here.
All right. So, e-governance and the digitalization unit. It rolls right off the tongue.
Right.
Speak to us about this unit and the importance.
Well, really and truly, it was under the administration, I think almost 2 years now, that they saw really the importance of e-governance, which is in reality leveraging technology that already exists to become more efficient, more effective, and to become more open and inclusive as a government. So it's really a governance mechanism that's utilized to modernize your own country, and in so doing helping to support the growth of it. So because of its importance, they established the first Ministry of E-Governance, and with that, our unit, which is the executing arm, we're responsible to execute all the projects under the National Digital Agenda, which is the umbrella framework for the country for the next 4 years, in how we plan to leverage technology, how we plan to utilize technology, to achieve various principles of e-governance.
What does the digital agenda include? For the lay person, for the average person who would want to understand, okay, what does this all encompass? What are we looking at?
Well, first of all, our main goal is to build that trust back again in government, to build trust in the services, to build the reliability and the safety of the services. So what the citizens can expect, of course, is more services going online, being able to access these services from home, but also being able to engage with the government through technology. So we also talk a lot about open government. And you can also expect to be able to tap into the ICT sector. So we'll be executing very soon digital skills courses, which we've done for the public service, but also for the citizens, so that you now can also tap into the ICT sector.
Okay.
Let's talk to Janelle, my good friend from the press office. So you've been a part of this initial cohort, if I could describe it as such. What were some of the takeaways that you would now be able to implement in your professional life?
Well, I think the first one I have to mention is just recognizing the difference between digitization and digitalization. And I think I remember after they launched the agenda, I went over to Alexia and I'm like, what's the difference? And so, you know, it's knowing you move from digitization is moving from analog to a digital form, and then digitalization is now bringing governance and transactions to be used and accessible by the public, right? The course, though, like really highlighted that it's not as simple as we think when it comes to digitalization. On the surface, you think, okay, you put in some computers, add some software, and we're good to go. But it's so much more than that, you know. It's making sure that you have buy-in from the people who will use it, those who are service providers, and those who will benefit from the services. It's also making sure that people have the necessary skill set to be able to utilize these programs or applications that you'll be implementing. And it's also about recognizing that there are challenges moving into this, because you have to know, is the staff prepared to take on this challenge? So it's I think it really highlighted what you need, having an overall view of what is in place and how we need to move forward from where we are now. And if I could just share, one of the things we did was we were tasked with identifying a department or ministry in government and doing a full assessment. We started with SWOT analysis, looking at the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, and then we moved on to a digital skills assessment. What is it looking like in terms of leadership and governance? What's the current state of things? How are we bridging the gap in terms of the digital skills? Then, and I'll just highlight that my group chose the vital statistics unit, and you know that's a sore thumb for government, right? And so that was a good one to use. And so we looked at a fishbone analysis and looking at, okay, what's the biggest issue in that ministry? So we identified service delivery. So what are the things that are causing poor service delivery, right? And then we moved on and we did what's called a digital maturity or digital readiness analysis, which looks at how prepared is your department, and it assesses based on a list of questions under very specific categories. And the highest you can score is a 3. And for instance, in our case, the highest we scored is a 1.3, right? So it shows that there's still a long way to go and much to be desired. And then finally, we provided recommendations as to how this particular ministry can improve.
It's interesting that you would choose the vital statistics unit as your example or your study, so to speak, because from the outside looking in, where service delivery is concerned, a lot of people walk away feeling shortchanged, in a manner of speaking. The length of time that they'd have to wait to get access, the turnaround time for them to get satisfaction, so to speak. They walk away thinking, wow, I come all the way from down south, for instance, and I have to stand in line, and I have to wait several days for an outcome, and in some cases I have to return, when the argument could be, well, this could have been done remotely. This process could have been automated in such a way where I could simply log on, punch in the information, verify it, and then the person on the back end would be able to process it, and it's made a bit easier, what we would describe as ease of access or ease of doing business.
But then I just piggyback on that note, right? On the other hand, you have those that don't have access to any kind of digital device or electricity for that matter. So how are we trying to help those?
Well, actually, we've just signed an implementation agreement with the Taiwan Embassy in implementing a digital inclusion program, but likewise we're also executing one with the UNDP. And the idea is exactly that. How do we not further widen the digital divide that already exists? So as part of those programs, we'll be implementing what you would traditionally call telecenters, which are really access service hubs that you'll place it in various locations across the country that will now give not just the technology, but also the accessibility to even skills. Because when you talk about inclusion, there's one thing to give access to the device, but if they don't know to utilize the device, they're not comfortable with it, then we're not really solving the problem. So we're also going to be doing digital literacy courses for the elderly. We're going to be doing different skills programs for youth so that they can begin to utilize all the available resources that exist today. So, you know, that's how we're also trying to ensure that while we're going online, we're also mitigating these additional risks and these additional challenges that, I mean, going online will automatically bring.
Right. Janelle, how does it feel to be the first digital leader?
To be a part of the first cohort, I think it helps us to have to understand our role in this, because we're supposed to be advocates for this now within our departments and ministries, and I think what it did was gave us a real in-depth look as to what's happening, because doing the assessments, you're looking from the point of view of a customer, you know, what's not working. And I know Isane as well, why the VSU, but because you're seeing from the outside, you know, I went and I looked on Facebook for our project to see, you know, what were the comments. If there was anything positive, that would have been great, but absolutely nothing. And so it comes back to the whole idea of inclusivity, accessibility, and having us understand as service providers that we want to make our services inclusive and accessible, and so it's buy-in from our end too. You know, we can't, you know, you can't advertise these services, but if the people actually providing the service aren't skilled or are still unsure of how it works, then you're still failing, right? And as Alexia said, it's also making sure that the customers are also that they're also educated, that there's awareness from that end. You know, you have all these digital applications, for instance, eCash. I love eCash, right? Because it's convenient. But does everyone have access to it, and is everyone able to use it the way I'm utilizing it? So just looking at all these things.
Ultimately, that's what it boils down to, though. I look at it as sort of a two-way street, with a degree of mutuality, where on one end you're making the services available, but on the other end the user has to be educated enough to be able to use it, plus be able to have access to it, right? Like you said, if you use eCash or any form of digital currency, if you use DigiWallet or whatever it may be, it is there and it is easy once you've understood the concept and how to use it. But for people who perhaps have a phone, if you're using your device, if you have a phone, you don't know how to access the app, you don't know how to begin the basics of using the app, then you're still at square one, right? Weigh in on that a bit for us, Alexia.
No, I think definitely, as I was hearing Janelle speak, as like, definitely she's one of my digital ambassadors. No, but what you guys have highlighted is really a culture shift that we're trying to create. And as we know, it takes time to change culture. Likewise with the public service, when we're talking about transformation, you're talking about people first. How do we help people to transition to a new reality? I mean, if you only think about the current situation with COVID, it took us a time to also adapt. Likewise with the digital revolution. So we saw it necessary to support the public service, because if government will transform itself, it needs to support its people. And its people is the public service. And how do we get the public service to begin to adapt to a new way of doing things? And the only way that's possible is if we give them the tools, we give them the knowledge, we make them understand and give them the experience. So we really empower them, and that was the entire idea of this course when we partnered with the UNDP. How do we design a course that allows the public officers to become empowered and not be afraid, you know, not be concerned that we're taking them digital, but they have so many questions. So I think it really did help from what she's saying.
I would presume, however, that all of government is so robust. It's such a huge organization with many moving parts at various levels, right? You have some people who may be fundamental in their mindset that this is the traditional way of doing things, this is what I know, this is what I've perfected in all of my years in the government service, this is what I'll do. You have other people who are open to new ideas and implementing new ideas. So within itself, there's that gap. There's that gap between people who are technology savvy versus people who are pen and paper. Now when you look at all of that, How do you bring people together in that regard to be able to be on one page to provide the service to the public?
Well, the first step is really to understand what their needs are, and that's what we've done. Aside from the course, we've also done a gap assessment, an ICT gap assessment across government to understand, as you said, where are we? Where are we across ministries, across units? Where are we within ministries itself? How are we compared to each other? Where are the gaps? But one of the things we asked them in the whole survey and study we did was, what needs do you see you need? What additional support and capacity do you need to be able to do the work that you're now expected to do? And I think that's something that's different when you begin to ask people, what do you think you need? Then the conversation changes, and I think they become more open to wanting to engage, because now it's more a dialogue, it's more a collaboration. So that's the approach we've taken. And it was surprising for us to see that many of them did highlight, that they wanted to have more capacity building in digital transformation. They wanted to have capacity building in information security. In how do they keep this vital data that they have within their ministry safe? So I think the awareness is there, but maybe the tools have not been given to them. So that's what we're now trying to work on, and trying to build that partnership.
There is an ongoing conversation about us moving digitally might create a lack of jobs now, right? That the computer will take over. It is a conversation,
it's a
right?
Fear, yes.
It is a fear. So can you counteract that myth? Can you tell them why that's not going to be possible, or why it's actually going to help increase the job stability?
Right, and that's actually a great point. When you think about digital transformation, right, we always think we're going to put in a system and
people are going to lose their jobs.
Right, everybody's going to disappear.
Right.
But in reality, because you have a system now, that system also needs to be maintained. And there also needs to be that back-end process and utilization of the information. So it's not like you're completely removing people, but in fact, you're maybe adding additional value to the roles that they play today. Because we are becoming more specialized. You're becoming more technical within a specific field, because that's what's now required from you. For example, I think we will need more information security experts. So it's opening up a new field of careers within the public service instead of actually removing and diluting. So I think it's, again, the understanding of what really happens in this transformation process, I think, is what leads to those types of fears, because we believe it's removing of people. But I think Janelle can highlight from the course, one of the big aspects that was highlighted was that you're going to utilize more people, but in specific areas.
So jumping on what Alexa is saying, I think we'll move into the less traditional jobs and moving into fields where you're using these skills like information security, which is one of the things we definitely covered a lot of. You need people to train people in digital skills too. Like Isani highlighted, we're not all there yet. And so you do need people who have the capacity to change mindsets and change the culture within government. And so I don't think it's something we should fear, but to see how we can integrate it into the work we already do. I mean, with our work, especially with COVID, suddenly at the press office, we went from being on site with everybody for everything to suddenly transitioning to doing live streaming. And, as simple as that seems, I know a lot of people think it's, you just pick up a phone and start video and live stream is good to go, but I mean, you all know it's so much more complex, and having eyes everywhere. So I don't think at any point you're eliminating people, but you're finding new roles for everybody in that process.
That's true. Speak to us more about the course, and are you going to be offering this by different cohorts? Who can take the course?
So the course was actually a regional course that was launched by the UNDP and ITU, which is the International Telecommunication Union. And what we did was we really tailored it for the public service context, and we added live sessions. So the course is executed within 4 weeks, and every week the participants need to engage together to try to do these various assessments, because at the end of the course, the objective is for them to prepare an entire assessment of a ministry or unit and then provide recommendations. And in so doing, we're also trying to accelerate the process within all of these ministries, because like you said, public service is large. How do we move them together is why we saw the need to begin to create that wave of digital leaders. Cohort 1 began last month in
early June,
and it took us 4 weeks. The next cohort begins in August, and then we'll have a third cohort in October. And because of the high demand, we're actually going to do now a fourth cohort in January. And every cohort is 40 participants.
Wow.
Initially, it was for senior policy officers within ministries, but because of the high demand, we're actually opening it up to anybody in public service who wants to actually take on this course. And we're also considering tailoring the course once more for the general public, because we've been getting a lot of request and demand of the general public in they wanting to do the course, which for us is exciting because we didn't expect that. So we might be launching a new one, and we're also designing an advanced course for the cohorts, because what they learned right now is just the basics, the fundamental, but how do we continue to help them in building their career, in becoming now digital planners and digital leaders. So again, helping them to fulfill a new role that now is necessary for this entire transformation
That was going to be my next question, how basic or advanced the course was, especially if you're planning to give it to the general public, right? So like, how are you going to let my grandma learn how to do a QR code? It's a legitimate question, right? She would need to go to Social Security. She's somebody that needs to go to lands, vital stats, Ministry of Immigration. So how do you plan to navigate a course tailored to somebody like her?
Yeah, and that's we're discussing actually with different community NGOs. For example, Humana is one. And how do we also tailor these courses and digital literacy courses based on the community? Because each community has different needs, and they're at various levels as well. So definitely the idea under the digital inclusion program is to design tailored specific projects and courses depending on the communities that we're going to execute it. But with that, we need to do partnerships with the NGOs who are integral into the entire culture of that community. I mean, we are not always in the field, so we might not understand best. So the idea is to really be able to capture their need, to do surveys, interviews, etc., to try to get involved and really understand, and then design the course based on that.
Perfect. Yeah, I like that. Any other final thoughts for our viewers before we wrap up?
Well, as always, when I'm here, I always ask the viewers to please, continue engaging with us, continue giving us the ideas, because while we're here as experts, we don't always have all the solutions, and us being able to understand the need of the users, which is the general public, is really helpful for us in moving forward. So always asking for that engagement, that collaboration with us, and you can expect to see us more as we continue to launch different projects. One of the telecenters actually phases will be launching in September, and also the courses.
I think that we should be open to improving and developing our digital skills. I mean, the world is now in such a way that if you're not going digital, you're going to be left behind. And just looking at the whole idea of inclusiveness, I look at my grandparents, and a couple years ago, they didn't know how to use WhatsApp. And now if I know to them on WhatsApp, or my grandfather, he always knows about what's happening in the news. And when I say, how you know that, Gramps?
Facebook.
I see it on the internet.
Yes.
You know, and so, you know, it speaks to that, you know, bringing not just the young people, but we still have our teenagers who need to catch up with us, right? And not leaving them behind, because even if they're not in the same sphere we are, the processes that they still need to use, like you highlighted, are moving into these digital, are transforming digitally, and so they too need to catch up. So I think it's just about being open to learning, so that you can also maximize and capitalize on these opportunities that exist.
If I can just add, of course, one last element. As Janelle was speaking, it kind of reminded me of the fact that we also took to the House last 2 weeks, I would say, I believe, a digital government bill. And the fundamental aspect of that bill is really to try to support the government to be able to bring everybody up to a specific standard. So while the course provides that knowledge, that experience, etc., we're trying to ensure that we're also setting the framework in guiding how do we all collectively now take this approach. Because as you highlighted earlier, we're all different. We're all moving at a different level. So how do we, just like, you know, trying to level the playing field in the private sector, likewise, how do we do so in the public service? So that bill also adds the framework to support the execution of the courses and trying to create these various standards within ministries, so that when you engage with government, you're engaging with government. You're not engaging with separate units, but you feel the one quality, one standard across.
Perfect. Yes. All right, thank you so much, ladies, for dropping by and talking to us. We look forward to August, September, October, January. Yes. And with that, we're going to take our final break, and we'll be back for a wrap-up, so stay tuned.
Yo, this is Super G the General, and I want to invite you all to the
Belize International Music and Food Festival.
That will be held for 2 nights, July 30th
and the 31st at Sakachispas Field.
This party insane.
Mr. Chipova, you. As you left my yard, tell me why you come back.
You know, it's yours truly, King Room Official.
It's your boy Stick the Artist.
My name is Clayton Williams.
It's your boy Dando.
Hi, my name is Deja.
TLC, baby. Blessings, everybody. This is Original Coffee inviting you out to the Belize International Music and Food Festival in San Pedro. There will be me, many other artists. There will be enough music, enough food. So come out, enjoy yourself.
Galenia Hospital, located in Cancun, Mexico's premier tourism destination, is a state-of-the-art healthcare facility that provides highly specialized medical services. We are Quintana Roo's biggest private hospital with board-certified doctors and staff. Some of our services include Cath Lab, Adult Intensive Care Unit, Neonatal Intensive Care Unit, emergency rooms, operating theaters, ambulance services, and more. We are a medically accredited hospital by JCI, Accreditation Canada International, and General Health Council, providing extraordinary care in every specialty, from our cardiology department to our neurology center. We are focused on treating the entire person, body, mind, and spirit. Contact us at medicaltourism@hospitalgalenia.com or visit our website at www.hospitalgalenia.com. Come to Galenia Hospital in Cancun for a truly personal medical care experience.
Your life just got a lot less complicated with Belize Bank Contactless MasterCard Debit Card. Introducing our Standard Debit and MasterCard Platinum Debit Cards. Now you can make purchases anywhere MasterCard is accepted with one tap, pay and go. Your contactless card never has to leave your hands, especially in these times. And your card is embedded with multiple layers of security. Platinum card holders get to enjoy extra benefits like price protection, purchase protection, trip inconvenience, and luggage protection, just to name a few. Start enjoying a cashless lifestyle today with the Belize Bank.
Download the SmartStream app on the Android Play Store and create your account to get access to movies and stream at home or on the go. Prepaid customers can purchase regular data packages or get a discounted rate on a special SmartStream package by dialing 7737. Postpaid customers will be billed monthly. Never miss a movie again with SmartStream.
Hola usuario de eCash, la aplicación eCash está disponible en español. Cambiar el idioma de tu aplicación de eCash de inglés a español es rápido y sencillo. Deja mostrarte cómo se hace. Primero, abre tu aplicación eCash. Introduce tu PIN. Toca el icono More en la parte inferior de tu pantalla. Selecciona Security. Selecciona Language. Y luego selecciona Spanish. Vuelve a introducir tu PIN y ya está. Tu aplicación de eCash está ahora en español y puedes seguir disfrutando de tu cartera digital eCash. La aplicación eCash de Belize Bank te hace la vida más fácil.
And we are back, and just like that, our Monday morning is starting for Isani and I.
Officially
started.
It started at 6:30 when I started the show, but it continues in my case.
Yes. Right? We don't get to go home after this, unfortunately.
I think that conversation where the use of sargassum is concerned is an interesting one, because we're now trying to find meaningful ways in which we could apply this sea moss that washes up on our shores, beyond just trying to use it as landfill or what have you. As a matter of fact, the doctor suggested that that may not necessarily be the best practice, but exploring alternatives in the biofuel area, in pharmaceutical and other areas of agriculture as well. I think it would be something that is beneficial for us as Belizeans if we were to employ some of these very practices or industries, if I may, right? When you look at our agro-productive sector, there's a need for input in fertilizers and other resources. When you look at the energy sector, if it can be harnessed for energy. When you look at other areas where we can use sargassum, then it becomes an additional resource to our toolkit, so to speak.
Well, I mean, the beauty about this research is the first of its kind, right? And like you rightfully mentioned, that we still have a long ways to go when we talk about sustainability and economic growth. Yes, we can use this resource for various products and so forth that can help us, but it would be the managing how we are able to take that resource you know, at a cost-effective way, and so forth. That is where we haven't necessarily figured out how to do as yet. That it would take some investment, and it would be years before we can see those solutions come to light. We have to take into consideration, in order for us to get somewhere, we have to invest in the right places, which would be a serious amount of money to go into, and we have to understand that that's what you have to do in order to get certain results.
But we're at the discussion phase.
Yes.
Where we're looking at possibilities that can become reality once we're able to follow the research and then apply it in a practical setting.
I'm glad that he mentioned that sargassum isn't something new, right? Because for those of us that are paying attention now, we're seeing it coming by the tons, right? And so we think that it's something that is relatively new, but he's absolutely right in saying that it's always been here. It's just now with climate change, which is real, it has become something of a mass production.
For those of us who are bibliophiles, people who read and enjoy reading, it takes me back to the Great Sargasso Sea. There's a story.
Do you want to enlighten us with such story?
You know, like, you're growing up, right? So you have all of these books, right? You have the Sherlock Holmes, Huckleberry Finn, Tom Sawyer. There was the Great Sargasso Sea. The mutiny on board Her Majesty's ship. I can't remember the name. All of these things. That's where, when you hear, when I heard sargassum many years ago, my mind automatically went there, and I would want to argue that perhaps that's the origin. They're tied somewhere there in terms of the use of.
Somebody will do a research on it. Somebody will do research. But no, it's a good conversation that we're having, because it is affecting us. It's affecting our tourism. It's affecting our economy. We have to pay attention to it. Not just because it's the people, they chuck it up and put it away now. Tractor means that's the solution. That's really not even helping, because whatever we take out is going to come right back in an hour or so later.
It's a short-term means of trying to approach a situation. Moving from that though to the idea of e-governance, right? Yeah. It's been something that we've been talking about for quite a while. Previous administrations have introduced the idea of certain aspects of government going online, and it reduces the actual contact time, the length of time you'd spend in a line, the process and all of that. But to see that there is now a program in place where persons within the public service sector are being trained and taught how to use what is presently available in terms of the online resources and what have you, to be able to deliver better services to the public. I think that too is a great initiative. Expanding it to the public itself is equally as important, because not only are we then in a position to learn and understand how these electronic platforms operate, but we'll be able to access and do business and transactions with government easier.
Agreed. Two very productive conversations in I think it's for us to kind of have that conversation to see where the future is going for Belize and the different resources that we can take with us. I am very curious to see how the different cohorts for the digitalization course will take fold, and then how we, the general public, can benefit. I believe that these and more will be something to continue at home. If you have those questions, talk to those that are in government, that are in place, those that came here today on the show. Ask them your questions, because they are the experts, and that's the only way that we'll move forward and learn. But we got to get moving. We got to go. We have jobs. But before we wrap up, we want to give a birthday shout out, and we have a birthday shout out. A happy birthday to Kenyon Lewis Jr. Happy birthday, Kenyon, from all of us here at Channel 5 and Open Your Eyes. We hope you have a wonderful birthday today.
Perfect.
Yes, and if you have a birthday shout out, or questions or comments, don't be afraid to drop us a line at oye@channel5belize.com. Or you can always check out our live stream on Facebook at Open Your Eyes BZ and some highlights on Instagram at OYE Belize. We thank you so much for tuning in. We hope that we see you tomorrow morning when you open your eyes.
To start your morning right.
And be sure to keep your eyes, your minds,
and your hearts open.
Bye, Belize.
Open Your Eyes was brought to you by the Belize Bank. Our country,